The air inside the medbay was sterile, heavy with the scent of cleaning agents and something faintly metallic. Fluorescent ceiling panels cast a bluish hue over every surface, making the room feel colder than it was. A thin mist of antiseptic vapor hissed from the vents every 30 seconds. It was standard procedure aboard the Virellan vessel Teyrassis, but to Randall Boone, flat on his back and stripped to his sweat-soaked undershirt, it might as well have been a meat locker. Vitals dropping again. The lead medic hissed to the others in the room, his forefingers fluttering nervously over the holographic monitor. He is losing fluid at a dangerous rate. Internal balance is collapsing. Randall's lips barely moved as he muttered, "I told you. Just pass me a sports drink." The medic named Virellan snapped his attention back to Randall. "You are not in condition to ingest artificial stimulants. Electrolyte beverages may destabilize your already fragile metabolic integrity." Randall's eyelids fluttered. "It's not a stimulant. It's sodium, potassium, sugar. It's what my body needs." Another medic, smaller and lime-colored, leaned toward Virellan and whispered something in their native tongue, a string of low chirps and guttural hums. Virellan waved him off and turned back to the human. "You are severely dehydrated. Not moderately, not slightly, severely. Your blood plasma is thickened. Your heart rate is erratic. You collapsed in the engine corridor and were non-responsive for 2 minutes. That is not a condition resolved with a bottle of colored sugar water." Randall tried to sit up, but his arms gave out halfway. "I just went too hard on the treadmill, that's all," he mumbled, blinking at the ceiling. "I forgot to hydrate." "Went too hard?" Virellan repeated, the translation unit struggling to interpret the idiom. "You engaged in high-output physical activity for over 2 hours in artificial gravity without replenishing fluids. That is not going hard, that is catastrophic negligence." Randall let out a weak laugh that turned into a cough. "Well, you guys said we were docking soon. I wanted to be in shape for shore leave." "You are not going anywhere," Virellan said flatly. "You are not even going to the lavatory without assistance." The smaller medic reappeared carrying a long, translucent tube filled with a pale green fluid. "This is a hydration conduit," he said. "It will supply vital hydration via osmosis through dermal contact. You must lie still." Randall closed his eyes. "Just give me a drink. Not a tube, not a dermal patch, not a mist. A bottle with a cap. Grape if you've got it." Virellan glared down at him. "Why are you humans so obsessed with flavor?" "Because it makes life suck less." Virellan made a noise that sounded vaguely like a sigh. He signaled the assistant medic to begin applying the conduit, wrapping the tube across Randall's chest and arms. The liquid inside began to pulse faintly as it activated. Randall winced. "Cold. Cool temperature enhances absorption," Virellan said. "You should be grateful." "I'd be grateful for a towel. And a sports drink." No, Randall didn't argue further. He let his head loll to the side, eyes tracing the blinking monitors and alien text scrolling beside his vitals. His heart rate was still elevated, blood pressure too low. The headaches had started about 30 minutes ago, right after his legs gave out near the mess hall. He didn't even remember hitting the floor, just waking up to Virellan shouting into some kind of comm bead and his skin feeling like dry paper. "Status," a new voice called from the doorway. It was Commander Teyrassis, tall and copper-skinned with a single vertical pupil in each eye. He stepped into the medbay with his hands clasped behind his back. Virellan turned. "Unstable. Core temperature falling. Cellular dehydration widespread. He refuses internal hydration methods." Teyrassis frowned and approached the bed. "Randall Boone, your condition is causing concern among the crew. You are exhibiting biological failures beyond our projections for human tolerance." Randall opened one eye. "Well, humans are full of surprises." Teyrassis tilted his head. "You should not have survived this long with such a deficit in fluid balance." "I've had worse," Randall muttered. Teyrassis looked to Virellan. "How long until he stabilizes?" "Unknown," Virellan replied. "Human physiology is erratic. He may require a full fluid transfusion if dermal absorption fails." Randall groaned. "Just let me drink something." Virellan's fingers twitched. "We have no proof your body would accept a synthetic beverage at this stage. It could trigger renal overload. It's just a sports drink, not poison." Teyrassis raised an eyebrow. "Do you have access to these beverages?" Randall nodded weakly. "Locker. Bottom shelf. Red bottle. I brought a case on board." Teyrassis turned to a nearby assistant. "Retrieve the item." Minutes passed. The green medic returned, holding a battered red plastic bottle. It was labeled G-Force Grape in fading white letters, condensation still clinging to the sides. Virellan took it gingerly. This contains sugar, salt, citric acid, and dyes unrecognized by our systems. Randall licked his cracked lips. Perfect. With a wary glance at Threx, Virellan unscrewed the cap. If your condition deteriorates, I will log this as a self-induced complication. Go ahead, Randall rasped. Just pour. Virellan held the bottle to Randall's lips. He drank slowly at first, then more eagerly. The sweet, artificial grape flavor hit his tongue like a lifeline. His whole body shuddered as he swallowed. More, he said. Half the bottle was gone before Virellan pulled it away. Threx watched the monitors. Heart rate decreasing. Blood pressure shifting upward. Oxygen levels improving. Virellan stared at the screen, baffled. That is not possible. The solution contains no active medical compounds. It is a recreational fluid. Randall exhaled deeply. To you, maybe. To us, it's God tier hydration. Threx folded his arms. What else do your species consume for survival? Candy? Carbonated acids. Sometimes both in the same bottle, Randall said, eyes already brighter. For the next hour, he rested while the medics monitored his every function. He started sweating again, which Virellan noted with concern until Randall explained it was a good sign. Late into the night cycle, Threx returned. You are recovering faster than expected, he said. Still feel like I got hit by a shuttle, Randall replied, rubbing his temples. But yeah, better. You were nearly in a fatal state. I've passed out from heat stroke before. This one was just more intense. You treat this lightly. I'm not. Trust me, I get it, Randall said, more serious now. We're used to pushing limits. Sometimes too far. Threx nodded slowly. Humans are more volatile than we presumed. Not volatile, Randall said. Just weirdly durable. Virellan entered with a small tray. I've replicated the sports drink. Taste may vary. Randall took the offered cup, sniffed it, and grimaced. Close enough. He drank, and the medics watched him like he was about to explode. Nothing happened, except his color improved, and he sat up straighter. Threx turned to Virellan. Catalog this beverage for emergency rations. Under hydration protocols. Virellan looked pained. You want us to stock fruit-flavored sugar water as a medical supply? Yes. Virellan muttered something in his language and walked away. Randall leaned back against the wall. Told you. Grape is the best. Threx sat beside him. Next time, hydrate before exercise. Randall nodded. Lesson learned. Outside the medbay, the artificial night cycle began dimming the halls. Randall closed his eyes, the taste of fake grape still on his tongue. He didn't need medical miracles. Just a bottle of something familiar. Something human. And maybe a towel. Randall woke to the sound of something humming inches from his right ear. Not the rhythmic buzz of the medbay's ventilation system or the low throb of the Teyrassis' reactor core. This was higher in pitch, almost curious in tone, like a mechanical mosquito that had lost its way and decided to study his scalp. He cracked one eye open and found himself nose to glass with a floating orb the size of a mango. It pulsed faintly with alternating green and amber lights, and a single, unblinking lens stared straight at him. Are you scanning my dreams? He muttered hoarsely. The orb gave a soft chirp and darted backward, rejoining a cluster of 3 others hovering just above the foot of his recovery bed. Virellan stood behind them, arms crossed, watching the display. You're awake. Good, Virellan said. We've been monitoring you for 32 cycles. Randall rubbed his forehead. And no one thought of waking me up during one of those? You were exhibiting uninterrupted delta wave activity. Disruption would have been counterproductive. Right. Heaven forbid I miss out on a full nap. Virellan ignored that and gestured for the orbs to maintain their position. They spread out, each projecting a translucent panel midair, displaying data Randall couldn't make heads or tails of. Muscle glycogen has replenished, Virellan noted aloud. Liver enzymes back within operational tolerances. Core hydration is approaching baseline. Randall sat up slowly, joints stiff but no longer aching. If you're about to say, I told you so, just remember without that drink, I'd still be a human raisin. No, Virellan said, tapping a panel. You'd be an expired biological specimen. That's worse than a raisin. Virellan turned one monitor toward him. Explain this. Randall squinted at the image. That's a vending machine. Correct. It appeared in your crew's cargo manifest 6 weeks ago. It is filled with those same colorful fluid containers. Why was this not included in the medical inventory? Because it's not medicine. It's just comfort stuff. Like chocolate bars and instant noodles. Your culture normalizes consuming products that have therapeutic effects without classifying them as such. Therapeutic might be a strong word. But yeah, we drink that stuff when we're tired, hungover, or just too lazy to eat real food. Veln's mandibles twitched. It contains over 20 compounds with measurable metabolic impact. That's probably just the preservatives. A tiny orb beeped and repositioned itself over Randall's shoulder. A brief tingle brushed his skin like static electricity that had second thoughts. Was that necessary? He asked. You are still under observation, Veln replied. Your species exhibits post-stress anomalies that defy standard patterns. We must confirm stability before releasing you to shared zones. Randall swung his legs off the bed, ignoring the slight spin in his head. So I'm still grounded. You are ambulatory, but not cleared. He looked around. The medbay was quieter than before. Most of the other treatment pods were empty, and the overhead lights had dimmed to a soft violet, probably simulating dusk for the crew's circadian rhythm. A panel near the door hissed open, and Commander Threx entered, his long gait unhurried. You are upright, Threx noted. More or less, Randall said. I'd kill for a sandwich. Threx exchanged a glance with Veln. Nutritional intake is permitted? Veln gave a reluctant nod. Within limits. Nothing with excessive lipid density. Randall held up a hand. I solemnly swear not to deep fry anything. See that you don't, Threx said. Some of our engineers still haven't recovered from your last snack experiment. That was popcorn. And it was a cultural demonstration. It triggered a smoke evacuation protocol and confused half the bridge crew into thinking we were under chemical attack. Still worth it. Threx stepped closer. You've become somewhat of a case study. Because I forgot to drink water? Because you survived long enough for it to matter. Randall rubbed the back of his neck. You know, on Earth, we lose people to heat stroke every year. Construction workers, athletes, hikers. It happens fast. What got me was the artificial gravity. We're not built to push ourselves that hard in a constant 1.2 G. Yet you did. I thought I'd be fine. I've run in worse conditions. Threx considered this. You were attempting to condition yourself for shore leave. Randall shrugged. I just didn't want to be the guy wheezing after 3 steps on a high-gravity colony. Threx glanced at Veln. Do any other humans aboard exhibit this behavior? They all seem to overexert as a matter of routine, Veln replied. It's difficult to determine if it's intentional or simply cultural self-harm. Welcome to humanity, Randall said. We call it pushing through. Threx studied him. Do you understand why that concerns us? I get it. You want predictability, patterns, but we're not machines. We adapt through risk. That is not adaptation. That is gambling with biology. Randall stood, swaying slightly. Sometimes it's the same thing. Veln tapped a control, and the floating orbs zipped back into their charging cradle. You may begin limited reintegration. But any sign of relapse, you return here. Deal, Randall said. Although I still vote for installing drinking fountains. Threx turned toward the exit. Join me on the observation deck in 1 hour. There's a briefing you should attend. Randall raised an eyebrow. Am I the subject or the speaker? Neither, Threx said. But your presence will preempt any rumors. Some crews still believe you suffered a system failure due to ingesting cleaning fluid. That's not flattering. It was a logical misinterpretation. Your beverage contains several solvents found in industrial degreasers. Randall pressed his palm to his forehead. I swear, we're not trying to be confusing. We just like our drinks to taste like synthetic fruit and mild acid. Threx left without commenting further. Veln handed Randall a data tab. Your nutritional schedule. Follow it. I'm not logging every snack. You will if you wish to remain out of this bed. Randall accepted the tablet begrudgingly. Fine, but I'm not giving up caffeine. Veln didn't respond, which Randall took as a conditional surrender. Later, after a lukewarm bowl of protein mush that passed for dinner, Randall found his way to the observation deck. The ship's curved dome offered a full view of the starscape beyond, sprinkled with the faint trails of distant travel wakes. A few crew members were already gathered, some seated, others leaning against the railings, speaking in low tones. When Randall entered, the room quieted. He pretended not to notice. Instead, he walked to a corner near the viewport and leaned forward, letting the stars blur slightly as his eyes adjusted. A violet-skinned technician approached him cautiously. Her name tag read Serene. I reviewed your telemetry, she said. Hope it was entertaining. It was disturbing. Yeah, I tend to have that effect. You passed the collapse threshold nearly 20 minutes before losing consciousness. Your autonomic system fought to maintain coherence well past safe limits. I didn't feel it until I dropped. That's what's disturbing. Randall glanced at her. You ever run a marathon at sea level and then try to do it in thin air? No, well, that's kind of what we do every day out here. We weren't meant for space, so we overcompensate. Serene nodded slowly. Still, you should not be alive. Randall let out a breath. Guess someone forgot to tell my body. She hesitated, then handed him a small foil packet. Try this. It's our version of a rehydration chew. He opened it and found something the size and color of a jelly bean, though it smelled faintly of algae. Bottoms up, he said, and popped it into his mouth. It tasted like someone had carbonated a pond. Serene grimaced. We're still working on flavor. Randall swallowed with effort. You should talk to whoever designed grape. A deep tone sounded through the room, and a display lit up at the front of the deck. Threx stepped into view beside a tall figure in diplomatic robes. Randall didn't recognize the newcomer, but he caught the way the other crew members straightened. Someone important. Threx gestured toward Randall's general direction. And this is Crewman Randall Boone, whose recent experience has prompted a re-evaluation of cross-species emergency protocols. The diplomat looked at him with a mix of curiosity and wary respect. Randall gave a small wave. Hi. No one laughed, but Serene quietly handed him another chew. 2 days had passed since the incident in the corridor. Randall sat at the back of the crew nutrition chamber, elbows on the table, a plate of beige food squares in front of him. He hadn't touched them. Across the table, Serene was making a valiant effort to chew through a purple strip of something stretchy and sour-smelling. You look better, she said between cautious bites. I feel human again, which is a mixed bag, Randall replied. But I've got my balance back. I stopped seeing double yesterday afternoon. That's progress. Serene leaned forward, lowering her voice. You know they adjusted environmental protocols ship-wide because of you? He raised an eyebrow. Really? They recalibrated the humidity regulators by 2%. Crew quarters now have hydration prompts synced into the sleep cycles. There's even a new fluid intake metric in the daily logs. Randall leaned back and crossed his arms. All because I forgot to drink water. You didn't forget. You underestimated what you were doing to yourself. There's a difference. He picked up a food square and turned it over like it might reveal a secret. We don't really think about it. Hydration, I mean. Not until it's too late. You should, she said. Your biology runs a tight margin. The medics are still reviewing your electrolyte drop. They said potassium levels like that should have stopped your muscles from firing. Yeah, he said, chewing the corner off the square. That explains the leg cramps. Serene lowered her eating strip. You had cramps while you were still running? Both calves locked up. I thought it was just fatigue. I didn't want to stop. Why? He hesitated. I don't know. Habit. Stubbornness. I didn't want to feel weak. She studied him for a long moment. You were literally falling apart. I've pushed through worse. On Earth, we treat discomfort like a challenge. You ignore the pain until it stops being pain and just becomes background noise. That's not resilience. That's conditioning to damage. Randall tapped his fingers on the table. Maybe, but it gets results. Sometimes too late to matter, sure. But it's what we know. From a nearby dispenser, a mechanical arm extended and deposited a small bottle onto his tray. The label was crudely replicated, electrolyte beverage grape analog. It looked slightly darker than the original. He held it up and shook it. Still doesn't look right. They tweaked the formula again. Less sodium this time. He opened it and took a sip. Closer. Still tastes like melted candy with a hint of battery acid. Serene wiped her hands with a cloth and stood. You're scheduled for a follow-up with Virellan in 20 minutes. I was hoping I could slip past that. You can't. He's already recalibrated your baseline vitals. If you miss, it flags the alert system. Randall sighed and stood. Fine. I'll go get poked. The medical wing was quieter than usual. The main corridor lights were dimmed, and the hum of equipment echoed faintly through the curved walls. Virellan was waiting beside a diagnostic chair, flanked by a tall assistant whose name Randall didn't know, though he recognized his lavender skin and wide, black eyes from a previous skin session. Sit, Virellan said, gesturing sharply. Randall obeyed without protest. The chair adjusted around his back and legs as two mechanical arms descended from above, each ending in a padded contact pad. This is a hydration equilibrium check. No needles. I'm already feeling better. You say that every time your vitals begin to normalize. Then you forget the cause. I didn't forget. I ignored it. Virellan adjusted a control panel. An equally dangerous behavior. The assistant moved to Randall's left and placed a small patch on the inside of his wrist. Coolness spread outward from the contact point. Any dizziness? Virellan asked. No. Muscle weakness? Gone. Cognitive fog? Only when I try to read your maintenance manuals. The assistant let out a short, musical sound that might have been a laugh. Virellan ignored it. Your serum osmolarity is within range again. Interstitial fluid balance is restored. No signs of renal stress. Randall raised an eyebrow. So I'm good. Virellan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he shut off the scanners and turned to face him. You were stable, but your recovery was not guaranteed. If you had collapsed outside a monitored zone, we would not be having this conversation. I get that. No, you pretend to get that. But you still operate as if your body is a machine that can correct itself without input. That is not how biology works. Randall met his eyes. We do that because sometimes there's no one else around to fix us. Virellan tilted his head. That is not resilience. That is desperation institutionalized as culture. There was no anger in the words, just something like fascination or pity. The assistant removed the patch and handed Randall a clear pouch filled with a thick, pale liquid. What's this? Recovery supplement, Virellan said. High in magnesium, amino acids, and glucose. It will help your muscles fully rehydrate. Randall took a sip and made a face. Tastes like old oatmeal. Efficiency doesn't require flavor. Tell that to my taste buds. Virellan turned to the assistant. He's cleared for standard activity. No gravity training for 72 hours. No caffeine for 48. Randall groaned. Come on, not even tea. Especially not tea. He stood and stretched. So I'm officially boring again. You were never boring, Virellan said. Just statistically alarming. Later that day, Randall found himself in the auxiliary gym, not exercising, just watching. A pair of Virellan engineers were testing a new resistance harness. The straps looked like a cross between a climbing rig and a musical instrument, and both aliens moved with cautious grace as they adjusted the tension. Serene entered, carrying a data pad. She waved it at him. They're drafting a new protocol based on your incident. It's going to be mandatory for all non-native species aboard any Virellan vessel. Let me guess. Hydration literacy training for high-output tasks? Close. Cross-biological exertion risk minimization. He rubbed the back of his neck. Catchy. They're designing it as a simulation. There's already a module where you experience mild human dehydration symptoms in virtual reality. Randall blinked. You made a VR experience out of me almost dying? Educational tool. It's already being shared to other species' medical councils. Your data's in the case file. He laughed softly. I'm going to be a cautionary tale. You already are. The gym lights flickered once, a signal that the next cycle was beginning. Serene turned to leave. Don't run any marathons today. No promises. But I'll bring a bottle this time. She paused and looked back. You're not indestructible, Randall. Neither are you. I don't pretend to be. He gave her a short nod. Then maybe you're ahead of me. Back in his quarters later, Randall sat on the edge of his bunk, a wrapped protein bar in one hand and the grape analog drink in the other. He wasn't craving either. He just wanted the comfort of routine. He keyed in a message to the shared ship log and began typing. Crewman Randall Boone. Incident resolution complete. Vital signs stable. Muscle function restored. Hydration levels within range. Mental acuity normal. I acknowledge that I ignored basic needs in pursuit of performance. I don't recommend it, but I understand now why you were all so alarmed. I also understand why you'll probably keep a case of this stuff in medbay from now on. You never know when someone's going to run themselves dry for no good reason. He had sinned. The light in his room dimmed to night mode. He took one last sip of the drink and set it down. Then, finally, he slept.